Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. I thought today we would do something a little different. Instead of doing a painting or a collage, instead of working with acrylics or watercolor or alcohol ink or any number of things that I like to dip my fingers into, I would do a video on how to finish a piece that you've done. Now, this is a collage that I did some time ago, and it was sitting in a frame, and although I liked it, I thought it might look better in resin. So what I have here is an 8 by 10, and I'm just going to use an inexpensive black canvas here, and I've trimmed down my collage because it was a little bit overlapping on my canvas. So now I think it's a perfect fit. Now, I want to go over quickly some of the materials you might want to use to do this. A lot of people are new to art, are new to collage, are new to crafts. So I hear a lot of questions in the Facebook groups about what should I use to finish this or to finish that. So I thought I'd do a little preview of some of the materials that I use. Now, to start with, I've sprayed this with Kmart Varnish. And just to go over a little bit, I always have these three in my home. The one I use the most is the varnish, but they each have their own uses. The low odor clear gloss, it's a permanent non-toxic protective coating. It's for arts and crafts, and it's good for photography, for watercolor, for charcoal pencil, painted surfaces. And you use this when you want an extra gloss. So that's by Krylon. And again by Krylon is this low odor clear matte, and it's the same use as the gloss, but you use it when you want a low sheen and not too much glare, so you would use the matte. And then we have the Kmart Varnish. I use a lot of this. Kmart Varnish is a non-yellowing permanent protection for your work, and it's good for oils, acrylics, watercolor, and I use it on my collages too. So if you put thin coats on, you could use it on paper, and that's the trick, is light sprays, do a couple of layers. And I've already put a couple of layers of the varnish on my collage here. What we're also going to use is Mod Podge. Now, Mod Podge has been around for a long time. Most of you will have heard of Mod Podge. This is by Plaid, and it's a water-based glue, sealer, and a finish. Now, I'm not exactly sure what's in this. It doesn't have ingredients listed, but I'm sure if you contacted plaidonline.com, you could get the ingredients if that's important to you. And it's good for most non-toxic surfaces. It's non-toxic, and it's good for most surfaces. And you just apply it with a soft bristle brush or a foam brush, which is what I'm going to, a foam applicator, which is what I'm going to use. So again, if you're interested in what's in this, it's a glue, so you can contact them through plaidonline.com. So also what I'm going to use is the resin. This is an art and craft epoxy resin from Magic Resin. This is out of Canada. I think at one time the US Amazon carried this, but they're out of stock. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I know you can get it from Canada. Within Canada, they ship free, and this is wonderful resin. Now, resin, Magic Resin, as I said, it's an art and craft epoxy resin, and it's used for all kinds of artistic applications. You can pour it up to 1/2 inch at a time. So if you wanted something thicker than that, you're going to have to do several layers and have it cure in between. It's crystal clear and high gloss. It resists yellowing. It's non-toxic and odor-free. Now, as non-toxic as resin can be, you need to wear a respirator, nitrile gloves, etc. This mix is 1-to-1 ratio, which means equal parts of A and B. It cures in 24 hours, and it's optimal for bubble release. So those of you that are new to resin, you will get little air bubbles in your work. Usually you can get most of those out with a heat gun or a small torch, but what you want to start with is a resin that doesn't promote bubbles. And I use these on coasters, 4x4-inch coasters, and I have figured out that a ½ ounce of resin and a ½ ounce of the hardener, equaling 1 total ounce, will cover a 4x4 tile. So you can measure that for your project. Now this is an 8x10, which is about, I don't know, I figured I'm going to need about 5 ounces in total for this project. So yeah, let's do that today. As I said, I've already sprayed this with the Kmart Varnish. Now I'm going to apply 2 coats of the Mod Podge. And I'm just going to get my foam applicator and we'll come in and I'll speed it up. But you can watch me, what fun, eh? Watch me apply the Mod Podge. So my Mod Podge, I put 2 coats on and it's dry. Now I'm going to apply my collage to my canvas, and I'm using Aleene's Tacky glue, which is, it dries clear. It's thicker than your normal, school glue, or I'd say it's somewhere between E6000 and Crazy Glue. Good solid bond and quite easy to work with, as you can move your piece around until you have it adjusted where you want it. Now I'm going to want to put a fair amount of glue on this for it to stick with the canvas. Stick on the canvas, not with it. Now just make sure you don't have any large spaces without any glue. I think we might be okay here now. Now be especially careful around the edges that you get, lots there. And let's flip this over and put it on our canvas. Now this is just an inexpensive canvas I picked up somewhere, probably Walmart or somewhere. Now you decide how much you want to spend for your canvas. Some of us are on a budget and some a little less so. So Now I'm just going to be smoothing this down. I think I have it about exactly where I want it on the board. And I'm going to leave this probably at least an hour to be sure I have that it's nice and dry. So then we're going to come back and we're going to apply our resin. Okay, so now I'm all set up. I'm going to be wearing a respirator, so my voice may sound a little weird. What we're going to do is, this is about an 8 by 10, so I'm going to need 5 ounces of total of resin and hardener, and that's about 142 milliliters. So I'm going to fill this up to about 150, just to be sure. Better to have too much than too little. And going to, do my thing. So let me measure that. And you need to stir. I use magic resin. They suggest 3 to 4 minutes. So I will be stirring that, making sure to scrape the sides, the bottom, for 3 to 4 minutes. And then we'll come back. Okay, so I've been stirring for about 4 minutes, but I do need to mention, you want to cover your edges and a bit on the back with some blue or green painter's tape, and make sure it sticks well to your painting, because guaranteed the resin is going to pour over the sides, and unless you want to sit there and put resin along the sides with your hands or whatever with the stick, you want to keep that surface clean. So yeah, so I've little 2.5 ounce plastic cups there that I'm setting my piece on, and I'm not set up well for doing resin with the camera, so you can see the legs of my tripod. So yeah, so I've mixed this for about 4 minutes, scraping on the sides every once in a while on the bottom. Now you're going to see a fair number of bubbles here. That's not a big deal for us because we're not doing a deep pour, and we can get rid of those bubbles with our heat gun. So this resin is ready to boogie. Now you have about 30 minutes by the time you've finished mixing your resin with your hardener, and you just pour it on. Now resin is self-leveling, but you want to make sure that whatever you're setting your resin on, or your piece on, is level. So you can get one of those instruments for, checking your levels. Maybe it's called a level. I don't know. I depend on my eye, which, after some time, after a few years, became pretty good at figuring it out. But it is more efficient and accurate to use one of those levels. So I'm just bringing my resin to the edges, make sure it's, because there is a bit of a tendency to go toward the middle now, especially on a canvas. So you have to be careful that your resin's not pooling all to the middle. And it's okay if it goes over. You have your tape there, your painter's tape, to protect the sides. Now you're going to work on this. I work on it for about half an hour. I pour my resin on. I check it at least twice in a half an hour to check for any bubbles that have come up since I've finished putting my resin down. Now what I use is one of these little lamps here, little oak bound lamp. It's got nice bright light, and that's good for checking for bubbles and making sure that you have everything covered on your canvas. So now I'm just taking that over my piece to make sure that every area is covered. See, now I have a spot here that's not covered. So I'll just come in with my resin and make sure that's filled in. Now I'm going to go over this with my heat gun. That's going to thin the resin somewhat, and it's going to move a bit. You don't want to stay in one spot too long, and this will totally pop your bubbles. If you stay too long in one spot, it'll has the potential to burn your resin. You don't want that. So that's nice right now, the way it is. Now, see another spot here. Now, since I added more resin, I'm going to come in with my heat gun again. Another spot here. As I said, it's better too much resin than not enough. You want to be sure absolutely every spot is covered. And I like coming around the edges like this because, like I said, there's a tendency for it to pool a little bit toward the center. Now I ended up mixing about 4 ounces total. 2 ounces of resin, 2 ounces of hardener for this piece, and it's plenty. And this is an 8x10. So if you're covering an 8x10, you know, 4.5 ounces should do it. Now see my edges here. You have to be careful. Now what I'll do is heat that again, cover my piece. I use a tote, just a tote I picked up at Walmart. Cover your piece. 10 minutes later, come in to see if any more bubbles have risen to the surface. Heat again, lightly. And then one more time, about another 10 minutes later. So about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I'm babysitting. And then cover this and leave it covered for, I usually use 16, 18 hours, and then that's pretty hard. So it takes 24 hours to cure and up to 3 days for a good hard cure. But this should be ready to be easily handled after about 16, 18 hours. So I'm going to leave it at that and come back and say goodbye in just a second. Well, it's been about 16 hours, and this is our finished piece. How glorious is this? I love that glass-like finish. To me, it's just stunning. And our sides. Now this is where we had our sides taped, so all that's showing it on the sides is the canvas. But just a beautiful sheen. So I hope you enjoyed that. Would appreciate a thumbs up. And yeah, if you're already subscribed, don't forget about the notification button. so you get notified each time I have a video that has uploaded. I would also like to say thank you to Christine, Peter, Denise, Kathy, and Cynthia for buying me a coffee. I have Buy Me a Coffee app attached, usually in the description. You will see the link to buy me a coffee. And coffee around here is about $3 a piece, so that's what I set it at. So if you would like to buy me a coffee, that's where you go. Just click on the link and yeah, buy me a coffee. And thanks to those who have bought me a coffee in the last week or so, and I appreciate it. So that's it for now, and I'll see you on the next one, folks. Bye for now.